Welcome back to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast. If you've ever wished you could just wake up and magically be better at swimming or swim the actual race distance instead of ending up 300 meters off course, then today's episode is for you. I'm joined by Brenton Ford from Effortless Swimming, who is going to help chat about all things Form Swim Smart goggles. You know those ones with the fancy display that shows you your pace, your stroke rate, and the distance while you swim? Brenton's going to give us a non-biased, no BS review and just take a practical look at whether they're worth it for age group triathletes like you. You might know Brenton from his incredibly popular technique videos on YouTube or his coaching programs that have helped thousands of triathletes become way more efficient swimmers. But today he's putting on his product review hat and he's going to help us figure out if those futuristic goggles are really worth the investment or if they're just a fancy gimmick. So we're going to dive into today how the goggles work and if they're really hard or actually quite easy to use, how they perform in both the pool and the open water, who maybe they're best suited for, and maybe somebody that won't benefit as much. And most importantly, are they actually going to help you become a better swimmer? Or are they just an expensive toy? As always, this podcast is not sponsored in any way, so we will keep it real and give you our honest feedback. Let's get stuck into it. Welcome, Brenton.
Hey, Taryn, thanks for having me back on. We were saying before, it's been a while since we've chatted on the podcast, but it's nice to be back on and how 2 years can fly.
Yeah, we'll have to do it way more regularly, I think. So for those who don't know you yet, Brenton, can you give us a quick snapshot of who you are and what you do at Effortless Swimming?
So my background was as a competitive swimmer, and pretty quickly after I finished swimming competitively, I started coaching and have coached since I was about 18. And I work primarily with triathletes to help them improve their technique to be faster and more efficient. So I do a lot of clinics around Australia and some overseas camps. And I really enjoy working on the technical side of things. And luckily that it's swimming is a technical sport, so there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, and your swim camps look amazing. I definitely want to come to one of the Maldives one time.
That'd be good. You are more than welcome to. So next year, lock it in.
Yeah, maybe. I'll just come for a holiday, some me time.
Yeah, it sounds good.
So let's dive into the goggles. When it comes to your philosophy around swimming tech, are you generally an early adopter with some of these things, or are you more of a wait and see kind of guy?
I kind of go back and forth. So for example, like Form goggles, I put off using them for a while until I got sent a pair by Form, and because I was like, nah, I'm anti-tech in some ways with swimming. And so then I tried them and started wearing them in some sessions. And then with other things, like I've been a pretty early adopter, like the EO Swim Better, the power meter devices. So it just depends on the technology. Typically, I am a more wait and see kind of person, but I am open to new things. I don't want to get stuck in that kind of old school way where it's just like, 10 folds and, just doing it the old way. It's like, no, you've got to adapt with the times. So I'm certainly open to new things.
All I remember from swimming days in terms of gear was those bands that you had to tie around your ankles that were literally just an old tire tube. Yeah, that was what I had to swim with.
That was the highest tech they really had back. Or maybe a stopwatch. That might be the highest tech back then.
So for somebody that hasn't really heard of Form goggles or doesn't really know what they are, can you explain what they are, what they do, and how they're different to just a traditional pair of swimming goggles?
So they've got a augmented reality. So they've got a display in the goggles. So it will display either time, pace, laps, whatever you kind of want it to display. And it will be there in the goggles. So you can see out normally like you would with any pair of goggles, but it will have this little electronic display in one of them. And it all very similar to a Garmin in the way that it tracks things. But I'd say it is more accurate than a Garmin because it's on your head instead of your arm. I think it's just easier to track things accurately. So some of the data that you would normally get from a Garmin watch, you will get through the Form goggles, plus a fair few other things as well on top of it. And they've added more features where you can follow along with workouts. You can track some of your technique and look at how you're going with it. So I'd say it's kind of like a Garmin, but with more accuracy. And obviously you can see it as you're swimming as well.
Do you think seeing that stuff while you're swimming is beneficial, like that real-time data?
With some things, I think absolutely. So for the way that I have used the goggles in the past is just for essentially just time and pace. So that's how I've actually got the most value out of it, is if I'm doing a set where I want to be hitting the right times and paces, getting my split off each wall. So hit the wall, push off, and it'll say, all right, that was a 37.5 second 50. Tracking it that way is probably talking myself up. It's probably more like 45. Tracking it that way, I've found really useful because if you're kind of doing a descending set where you'll get quicker each 200, just knowing that you're on track for that, I've found to be quite beneficial. Whereas we've never been able to do that before. It's just you'll get your time at the end of the 100 or 200. But knowing where you are in real time that was pretty cool. And that's been my primary use of it. But obviously, there's a few other uses for it, which we can get into. But for me, that's been probably the biggest one. Another maybe good one for that too can just be some of the technique related stuff. So head position, for example, you can kind of get a sense of where you should be looking because it will tell you, oh, you're too high, you're too low. The thing with their head position data though is they give you a score out of 100 for it. And I think they've got it angled at, might be like 38 degrees. So if you're looking at 38 degrees forwards from straight down, you'll get a score of 100. But the thing with that is there's a range. It's like not everyone should look at 38 degrees. Some
highly specific.
Yeah, that's right. There's a range for all elite swimmers and all amateur swimmers as well. So that I think can be a little bit, there's more nuance to it. So you kind of just need to know that. But then there are things like time to neutral. So how long do you take to get back to neutral after you take your breath? That can be quite useful as well. The thing with it though is it can't necessarily give you the entire picture. So let's say your time to neutral is you're very slow to get back to neutral. It might actually be that you're turning your head too late or that you're sort of lifting and turning to breathe. So it's taking longer to get the breath. So it won't necessarily give you the whole picture, but it can certainly give you a pretty good snapshot.
And from a coaching technique, is the information that it's giving you in real time, do you think that is useful and beneficial, or do you think that's a bit more confusing and overwhelming for athletes?
I think it can be pretty good, especially for someone who doesn't have a swimming background. Now, I think if you come from a swimming background, typically you've got a fairly good sense of your timing and paces and return on effort. Whereas someone who doesn't have that background, that takes a while to develop. So it can be pretty good for that, especially for like going out too hard and too fast, which I see a lot of beginner swimmers really do. So in terms of pacing, I think it can help there. Technique stuff, it depends how you use it. Like we have so much data when it comes to our training.
Yeah.
And in swimming, I do like to err on the simplistic side because there is just so much to think about. So I think if you use it for a specific purpose and don't get too caught up in it, it can be okay. But I think it's sort of a case-by-case basis, but I wouldn't say that like everyone has to have the form goggles, for example, but it can be a useful tool for certain people. One thing that I've found with them too is like the visuals is obviously not as good as a normal pair of goggles because they do stick out a bit bigger. The viewing range is a bit narrower, and you've got obviously the depth as well.
All the data.
And open water, that can be a little bit restrictive. So there is, I think it might be Finis, might be the other brand that's got one. So if it is Finis, I might have that wrong, but they've got one that's got kind of normal lenses, and then just off to the side, it will show you whatever data you want in there. So you can kind of just look to the side and get that snapshot. So that's another option. And I've had one swimmer use them and they said that was actually pretty good. So there are other options there as well, but I haven't tried the other ones.
With the form goggles, I haven't actually put them on my face, but do they have the data right in front of your eyes or sitting off to the sides?
Right in front on one lens.
Okay.
But it's fairly easy to just kind of look at that and then just look ahead from there. So it's easy to make that switch between the two. But it does take some getting used to, and it can be a little bit, I think, off-putting at the start because it's a bit strange. And then also like the limited range of view is a bit strange as well. So if you're in a busy squat environment or like you kind of need to be well aware of your surroundings, may not be the best option. I'm selective with when I wear mine. Like it's not every session. It's more for something that might be like a threshold session where you want to be pretty accurate with your paces. But I don't like to use them if it's pretty busy in our lane because like you're not going to be able to see as much of what's coming ahead.
Yep, lots of crashes unless you're leading the lane.
Yeah.
One of the really cool features that I know a lot of triathletes have gone the form goggles path for is the swim straight, to make sure that they are actually swimming straight in a race. Have you had much experience using that, and do you think that's beneficial or it's a bit of a gimmick?
I haven't used it much, and I haven't used it in a race, so I can only comment to what I've heard from others and a little bit of my experience. I've had some, like a coach like Joe from Trevello, for example. He said that he's used it a bit in a race, and some of his athletes do, and they have found it really beneficial. So I think it can be really good for some people, especially if it's, let's say it's like New Zealand Ironman. It's basically just out and back. Like it's a very direct course. So you're pretty much going almost 1.6K out, 200 across, 1.6K back. It's like, if you can see a buoy, all right, then you can go head down and not have to be too aware of your surroundings. The thing is, if you don't sight for something like, I don't know, 12 or 15 strokes or something, it'll say like, look up. So it's like, you're still going to have to be sighting, but it can just keep you a little bit more on track. So like in terms of accuracy, it's pretty good from my experience. It's not like you can just look down for 3.8K and so it can be quite good, especially if you are in an area that there's not going to be boats or other people or whatever, and you just want to swim straight. Like that's not bad for training and stuff like that.
And so it doesn't have the course loaded into the field of view or something. It's giving you a degree symbol that you've got to keep within. So you have to actually sight to see where you're going first to get that trajectory. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly right. So you'd need to like sight, make sure you can see the buoy. And then, okay, that's saying 140. So you can look down and then you can just keep on that 140. So it doesn't take away the need to sight at all. You still have to do it, and it will tell you sight, like look forwards, be aware of your surroundings. If you don't look for a certain number of strokes or certain amount of time.
Okay, so it's not the magic bullet that all triathletes are looking for to be able to swim straight.
No, I would prefer someone learn how to like take the 15, 20 minutes to learn how to sight and do that well, so it doesn't break your rhythm and those sorts of things. And look, if you want to use form goggles, a lot of people do wear them in a race and have gotten a lot from that swim straight. By all means, go for it and use that to your advantage if you want to. And
compared to using them in the pool versus the open water, do you see any advantages to either method, or you could use them across both?
You could use them across both. I haven't really done much in the open water with them at all, only because of the visuals with it. Like I would much prefer to be able to kind of have some slightly bigger goggles, see where I'm going to be able to do it. So that's just my preference. But in the pool, I think I prefer to use them in the pool because I like you can get your pace. I like that, you can keep track of that stuff. So that's where I'd prefer to use them. But I know people who prefer to use them open water. So it just depends.
So do you think they're more of a training tool than a race day performance type tool then?
Yeah. For me, that's how I'd look to use them. More for training, so you can be aware of your pace or maybe your stroke count, whatever sort of data that you're tracking, or even if you want to follow along with their workout. That can be quite good motivation for people to, if you're swimming solo, even just having air goggles tell you what you need to be doing, even that can just kind of help you get through it. Because sometimes training solo for a lot of people can be quite boring and monotonous. I'll just skip this 200. I'll skip this 400. So I've used them with the workouts a few times before. It was quite motivating. I think it just takes a small little bit of accountability to help you do the session that you're required to do. So that's why I would prefer to use them in the pool more so than racing.
I see the new ones have got little heart rate monitor that sits here on your temple as well. Have you found that that's nice and accurate and that data's helpful?
Yeah, I think as long as you wear a cap, it's fairly accurate. So I have worn them before. I've got the heart rate monitor one, and sometimes it's just you're like, no way. I was going max effort and my heart rate is not 115. I know that. But I don't often wear a cap either. So I try and wear a cap when I have got them on, because then it just sits it a little bit closer and then it's really up against your temple. And then it is fairly accurate. And I can see that in a set where I might be descending. So let's say it's 10 ones and maybe you're just building up as you go. You can see that in the heart rate. So it's fairly accurate there, but I haven't compared it to the one you can wear around your arm, which from my understanding, probably the most accurate that you can get while you're swimming. So I haven't compared it to that, but yeah, from what I can see, it looks pretty accurate.
Do other heart rate, you may not know the answer to this question, but do other heart rate monitors feed into the form goggles? So you could wear a polar chest strap or something and still get the data in your goggle lens?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know, actually.
Asking the wrong person, that's okay. That'd be a cool feature though, Form, if you're listening.
Yeah, don't know.
So what are some of the drawbacks or things that are annoying or maybe didn't work as expected?
In terms of anti-fog, most goggles don't last that long with like anti-fog anyway. So like that's one thing, because it's like you can't just attach this thing to a new pair of goggles. So in a way, they've got a limited lifespan with that, or just your ability to see well. That's one. I haven't really had any issues with connecting to the app on the phone. Like that's all been really good and pretty seamless. They do keep adding more features and like improving things, which I like. But drawbacks, I mean, yeah, no, aside from just like they're going to wear like any piece of equipment, and the visual side of things, I can't think of too many more. I mean, some people don't like the subscription side of it, which is understandable. But you can still use them without the subscription, but you don't get access to, I think, like loaded workouts and a few other things. But you can still get your data and all of that. But I don't think you can use the Swim Straight and some of the technique feedback things without the subscription. So I think you get like the base amount of data, so you can still track times and pace and things like that.
The anti-fog stuff disappearing over time would be really annoying, because they're quite expensive to then have something rendered almost useless because of that one tiny thing. They almost need to invent a way to sub out lenses, or like you said, clip that thing onto a new pair of goggles. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can kind of do the baby shampoo stuff, but like it only lasts so long. But I think that
is a good tip, actually. If anybody's listening and you buy a new pair of goggles every time the anti-fog disappears, good old like Johnson & Johnson's baby shampoo works a treat. Have you got any tips for people to use that, to like how to actually physically fix the anti-fog with something like that?
Yeah, I think like that's pretty much the jet like baby shampoo is the one, and just doing that before every swim.
So do you put it on and leave it to dry, or do you just chuck it on for a bit and then rinse it off?
Then leave it to dry. Well, I haven't tried leaving it on to dry. It would just normally be like put some in, use your finger to wash it, and then clear it off. Have you got any experience with that? Because I feel like I'm missing out on something here.
No, it's more for people that are like, what is this tip? This is a gold nugget tip that you probably don't even think you realize that you know. I have tried leaving it on to dry, and it just forms like a big thick mess that you can't see through anyway. So then you've got to get your finger in there and actually like clean it out to be able to see. Just some good little practical tips that if you're not a swimmer, it's like me with
exactly
food.
Right.
I don't even realize I know all this stuff about food and cooking, and people are like, oh, that's an amazing idea. And you're like, oh, really? That was like simple.
Yeah. Baby shampoo. There's this new technology that like for anti-fog, where it's like instead of just applying a coating. So I used to wear Swedish goggles, which are like no frame goggles that like just sit on your eye. You'll know them, like it's like just sit right over your eyeballs. But
painful.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but the anti-fog would last maybe 5 swims or 6 swims.
Yeah.
Because it's just a coating. But there's this new technology where they do like this. It's like this microdermabrasion to the lens where it pulls in the water, gets covered with water, and then it's like you can see really clearly, and it lasts way longer. Maybe they should need to do that to the Form lens, like the Form goggle lens, because I'm sure they'd be able to, and it would last so much longer.
Yeah, there you go. Technology, hey?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that segue. Thank you for that sidetrack. Can you think of any scenarios where using Form goggles would be a bad idea for an athlete?
For someone who's fairly new or like still working on some of the basics, it's probably not worth tracking like time and pace and some of those things. Like if let's say you're maybe a 230 swimmer per 100, I don't think it's worthwhile just using the goggles to track pace and things like that, because you probably need to get like just some fundamentals of your technique in place first. Good head position, good body position, the right rotation, like just go through those fundamentals first to work down closer to maybe 2 minutes per 100 and below that before you start worrying about this other stuff. So I think it's very easy to get caught up in the data, whether it's with your Garmin or with your Form, especially in the early days. But that's when I think it's almost most important to not even worry about that stuff. Swimming is so much about feel, as you know. It's like it's our feel for the water and our connection and rhythm and timing. And quite often these electronics can really take away from that. And so it's worthwhile just being okay with putting the technology to the side and just being aware of what you're doing in the water. So I think particularly for beginners, but that also applies for experienced swimmers and people who've been doing it for a few years, just like certainly be willing to get rid of the technology for at least some of your swimming. If you like data, all good, track it. but at least do one session a week where you're not wearing any devices and just have that awareness about what you're doing in the water.
And it doesn't sound like it's going to take away from having somebody watch your swimming as well. Like, it's not going to tell you about so much stuff to do with swimming form, like where your legs are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is really valuable to make sure you're nice and streamlined in the water. It's not my area of expertise, but I don't see them replacing that. I think maybe combined they'd be a great tool, but I don't think they're going to be this is going to improve your swimming by 8 minutes for a 70.3 distance swim.
Yeah, that's right. Like, they can only track what's happening with your head, really. Like, it's where you're looking, how long it takes to bring your head back to breathe, and where you're looking when you breathe. So it can give you that feedback. And obviously it can give you pace feedback, but all the other things with like posture, legs, how much you're rotating, like, it can't tell you that. It might be able to help you swim straight, so you might be able to save some good time there, but it doesn't take that long to learn how to sight well and keep your rhythm when you're doing it. It's like anything, right? There's no magic pill. It's just, it still takes hard work, time, practice to get good at swimming. And this could be a tool that could maybe help fast track that in some ways, but it is absolutely no magic pill at all.
So what's your final verdict then? Form goggles, a game changer, a useful tool, or maybe just a nice to have shiny little gadget?
It depends on the context, but I think, like, I would say a game changer in the fact that you can see your pace when you're swimming, a useful tool for most people, but it's a nice to have in that you don't need them to improve your swimming. So kind of covers across all things there. And if you want to get them and you're happy to spend the money, I think it can be a fun little toy to have for some of your sessions.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that honest deep dive into the world of form goggles with Brenton. Whether you're a tech curious or tech cautious type person, hopefully you've got a clearer picture about what they are, what they can do and can't do for your swim training and swim technique. Are they going to be the secret weapon that you've been missing, or are they just a bit of a shiny swim tech that'll end up in the gear bag next to that snorkel that you said you'd use every week but you don't? Massive thanks to Brenton for joining me today and giving me the lowdown. If you want to learn more about effortless swimming, I'll pop the links in the show notes for you to check that out. And if you've tried form goggles yourself, whether you love them or hate them, I'd love to hear from you. So come and have a chat to me over in the Dietitian Approved Crew Facebook group. If you found this episode helpful or at least, mildly entertaining, please leave a review or share it with a training buddy who's still zigzagging all over the open water swim course. But thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next week with more ways to train harder, recover faster, and perform at your best. Thank you, Brenton.
All right, thanks, Taryn.